It's finally time for another dark side video, this time the dark side of academia. I used to run a research group for more than 15 years at the Novo Nordisk Foundation Center for Protein Research as a full professor at University of Copenhagen. But I decided to leave academia for a job in consulting. Trade-offs. It used to be fair when you were choosing between staying in academia or leaving for industry. And yes, I know, they are not the only two options. If you stayed on as a professor, you would enjoy academic freedom, the democratic culture of universities, and job security. In return, you would get paid less. If you went and became a researcher in industry, you'd get paid more to do your job. With the risk of layoffs, however, it's normal to change jobs in industry, so you're not in that bad a position if you got laid off. The illusion of freedom. Universities have changed over the decades, and today we're in a very different situation than we used to be. Freedom of research has been reduced to freedom to do research in what you can secure funding for. The calls are more and more narrow, often politically motivated, and focus on applied research. And most importantly, the success rate is getting worse and worse every year. The crumbling democracy. Universities used to be managed by professors. However, in the 80s and 90s, we saw the introduction of new public management, which meant a much more business-like operation at universities. Professors are now essentially powerless. The focus is on measuring their performance, and by performance I mean grant money, because grants is what brings overheads to universities, which is what funds all the expenses related to running the administration. Now, it's very easy to blame management, and it's not unfair, but it's not all their fault. Government interference plays a big role here. We've seen loss of academic freedom, especially in countries like Denmark, and reduced university funding, which is why management now relies more and more on the researchers bringing in all that overhead money. The illusion of tenure. In academia, it's always been the case that early career researchers were on temporary contracts. However, it now takes longer than ever before you potentially reach tenure. If you're one of the lucky few who make it to become a university professor, you will have a high teaching load, but in return you will have better job security compared to industry. However, you will also have less time for research. There's an obvious solution, right? Become a group leader at a research center with generous external funding, for example from the Novo Nordisk Foundation. However, these centers, not just in Denmark, now tend to be time-limited centers, and when the time is up, you will very likely be laid off. You're now in a situation where you've spent more than 20 years in academia, and you need to find a new job. Good luck with that. It's a lot harder than finding a job in industry, where it's normal for people to change jobs, even at a senior level. And that brings us to my view of the current state of affairs. If you want to do research, I think industry is more attractive. The academic trade-off has now basically been reduced to, you get paid less? Yeah, that's the entire trade-off. If you found this video entertaining, you may enjoy watching some of the other dark side videos, which I've linked to here. Thanks for your attention.